guys, I want to let you in on a little secret. The Poco F3 is not a flagship killer. And the first reason, it's pretty simple. It's the charging. The Poco F3 utilizes 33-watt quick charging. That at this point is the Mi Turbocharge 2.0 technology. It's 6 watts faster than the Mi Turbocharge 1 technology at 27 watts. But it hasn't radically changed the battery tech inside any of the Xiaomi phones. The battery tech is still the same, still unchanged. The quick charging is fine, and there's nothing wrong with it, but Xiaomi is now utilizing 67-watt dual cell battery charging. And thus, their 33-watt charging that can now be found on their mid and their budget devices, it's not a flagship feature. The second feature that's not a flagship is the SoC. I don't want to hear about Snapdragon overclocking the 865 Plus, and now we have the 870. It doesn't matter. It's not the newest processor. It's not the processor that they use in their flagship. It's a totally fine processor. It's a fast processor. It is a good processor. And because it's made from TSMC instead of Qualcomm, it's got better quality control, and probably in some ways, the 865 Plus Pro, aka the 870, is better than the 888, especially at least in terms of throttles, but it's not flagship. The next one is the screen, and this is a little bit more difficult. I looked up the difference between the Samsung E3 and E4 panels. The E4 panel has a 15% increase, or decrease, I guess you would say, in power use, a 15% increase in power efficiency. The maximum brightness for the E4 panel is 1500 nits, while the E3 is 1200 nits. And the highest spec of the Samsung E4 panel is an LTPO display, or variable refresh rate display. The LTPO panel is what OnePlus uses, and it gives manufacturers the ability to have a scalable refresh rate so that it saves battery on their devices. But Xiaomi's not even using that in their flagship, so I guess I'll let that one slide, guys. The Poco F3 is using the same quality display as the Mi 11 Ultra, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not the best display tech we have currently. Next one is cameras. Now the Poco F1 had the same camera sensor as the Mi 8 and the Mi Mix 2 at the time. It was a flagship sensor. It was the IMX363, and it just forewent, or did not include, optical image stabilization. But the hardware at the heart of it, it was the same. The Mi 11 Ultra and other high-end Xiaomi devices, it's using the Samsung GN2, which is a big new sensor. It's expensive. That's what the Mi 11 Ultra uses. The flagship sensor from Sony right now is the IMX768, IMX777, but it's an IMX 700 series. That's not what the Poco F3 is using either. It's using the 2-year-old from the Redmi K30 IMX582, which at the time was an okay sensor and a small upgrade to the IMX363, but it's not even close to flagship. Now, the Mi 11 Ultra still utilizes USB 2.0, but I think you and I can both agree USB 2.0 and no HDMI out over USB-C, not flagship. So what is the Poco F3? Because it doesn't share any components other than the Samsung E4 display with Xiaomi's flagship device, or really any other flagship device. It doesn't have an amazing ultra-wide camera. It's got the same ultra-wide camera as I have on my Redmi Note 10 Pro, which is fine. But again, it's not the best nor close to the best. It's got the 360 Hertz touch sampling rate, which is a flagship feature for those that game, but we're not seeing the same kind of flagship components. Now, I actually think that the best thing for the Poco F3 is gonna be the Poco F3 GT, because that's gonna give you all of that, plus the Dimensity 1200, which is the same power as the Snapdragon 865, so not as much as the 870, but still a really good SoC. But the Poco F3 is gonna drop the price down, whether they call it the Poco F3 Gaming Edition or Poco F3 G, whatever they name it. It's gonna have a bigger battery. It's gonna have the same charging tech, probably, or it might have the 67 watt, 65 watt Xiaomi new turbocharged technology that the Poco X3 GT has. And it's gonna be cheaper because they're going to be giving it to you with a Dimensity processor instead of Qualcomm, and that is going to be an insane value phone. And all of these phones are kind of insane value phones for the price to performance that we're getting from them. But these aren't, it's not a flagship killer. The components aren't from flagships. Really what they are just kind of expensive B-class devices, expensive A-class devices. The no optical image stabilization, no LTPO, last year's SoC, no new battery tech. Great value, totally fine device. Don't call it a flagship killer.